if you look, and I don't mean to diss them, but if you look at the spate of Marvel comics, in fact, Marvel movies, you've been in one actually. You were Helmet number 3,
That's right. That's
somewhere at the back.
right. Exactly.
um, is that they play it so incredibly safe that you're seeing the clockwork mechanism behind it. You're seeing this kind of industry behind it that says we will not make you uncomfortable in any way, shape, or form. But if you look at the movies that came out in the 70s, when the studios didn't really care about them, you had a lot of amazing work that came out of that, because they were exploring character, whatever that looks like. They were exploring that. And I want to see that again. I want to see some bad people doing some incredibly bad shit. Um, but then I want to see the humanity of that and how that can affect an individual into changing or not. I want to see the human factor at work, very much so. And there's this really pervasive kind of misunderstanding that you either have two kinds of stories, right? You've got plot driven or character driven. This is a complete fallacy, by the way. They're all character driven. I've never seen a plot run on its own. Every movie is based on decision making. So you've got a value system, a belief system, a character who makes a decision, right?
Right.
A car doesn't drive itself unless it's Pixar car, and even then, they are characters, right?
Yeah.
So this idea that you've got a plot-driven movie is just not the thing. All of them are character-driven movies, but some movies will emphasize different aspects of it, like explosions and big spectacles, whereas other ones will stay a little bit quieter, a little bit smaller, like Driving Over Miss Daisy. So they'll just kind of keep it smaller, but all of them are character-driven. The mechanism behind those stories are exactly the same. It's people making decisions.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually maybe I'm digressing a little bit to say it, but just because you brought it up, one of the things I find myself frustrated by with a lot of these superhero stories now is that they they shy away from, you know, or they're trying to figure out ways to kind of give their characters shades of gray
Mhm.
by making them more akin to anti-hero characters. And they're saying, you know, the reasoning given is that they say, well, you know, someone who's too good is boring. It's too one-dimensional.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I guess maybe I'm reflecting back on the, you know, Superman stuff from the 70s, things like that. But the thing that I find I don't hear it brought up in that conversation is that sometimes it's the good character who's dealing with you know, a gray world, or you know,
Yeah.
it's that dichotomy that they wrestle with, or how, you know, when it's really hard to do something that's right, not in a kind of, you know, this is the principle, it's difficult but you do it anyway kind of thing, but it's genuinely kind of like I can't remember the name of that dichotomy that there's in psychology where, you know, you're going to save your son who's stuck on the tracks, or you're going to
Okay.
save the
Yeah.
train. Those kind of moral dilemmas where you really have to wrestle with, you know, a hard moral decision, let's say, but
Yeah.
but a good character, so you maintain the integrity of that part of the character. And I think they've kind of messed that up a bit because everyone started scrambling so much to try and put in these shades of gray in characters that kind of symbolized or represented something, and now um
And
you know.
and this is something you could do as a screenwriter. As do you remember earlier, I said this thing that if you're organizing your story in 9 sequences of 10 minutes, for instance,
Mhm.
you could look at each sequence and say, let's make every sequence a dilemma. So you were talking about the classic trolley line dilemma.
Right.
Do you pull the switch or push the fat person in front of it? I've got my answer to that. But
Right.
what if you have 9 of those lined up in a movie? Where within the text of the movie you've got 9 dilemmas, and the last one is like a horrendous one, like a bit like Sophie's Choice, right? You've got
Mhm.
either this or that. That you haven't written a word already, and your structure is already pretty amazing because now you've got nine times you will go, I just don't know what I would do. What would the character do? And depending on what the character believes is going to completely change that scenario. So belief system is incredibly important. If you have two people stuck in a room and one of them's a neo-Nazi with that belief system, and the other one is a Jewish rabbi who's a doctor. The neo-Nazi's injured, he's bleeding out, and the other one's a doctor who's got the tools to fix him. How do you negotiate that situation, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, nothing's happened. nothing's happened, and you're already, yeah, that's got to sting.
Yeah.
That's got to be a bad scenario. A lot of dialogue in that one to try to negotiate each other through that. That's good drama. It's, you don't need spacious for that. You just need to execute it on the page properly.
Yeah, yeah. And
Again, very hard.
that's magical though when you can do that, because I think of um those dialogue driven stories. That's to me, that's a whole other level of trusting your instincts and your training, and because what was the
Yeah,
film? The Big Kahuna was all kind of done in one hotel room
yeah.
with amazing actors, and it really worked. But I imagine trying to sit down and write something where it's all dialogue driven in one room like that, and really making it work. And that's a very daunting idea to me. And I tip my hat to people who can do that well.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's less daunting if you see it in pieces. So I was talking about 9 sequences a moment ago. What if I said that your story has 12 endings?
Mhm.
It seems a lot more manageable than one holy shit ending, right? Which is absolutely true. If you look at a well-structured movie like Malice, for instance, that came out in the mid-90s, if from the midpoint on you begin to answer questions, so you set up a bunch of mysteries. It's something like 12 mysteries that they set up, and then at the midpoint you begin to answer them as you go along, all the way to the ending. So for an hour, all you're doing is solving mysteries or answering mysteries, and it's building up and building up and building up. So a screenwriter who's looking at one ending, you should be looking at what's the 6 endings of your story that when one has been concluded, it triggers off the next one that concludes, that triggers off the next one. And then suddenly that makes you think about your third act and your second act ending in a completely different way. Because now it becomes about answering questions. And so you can have 2 guys in a room, but it's not just 2 guys in a room. It's 12 ongoing mysteries in a room that they're having to negotiate between each other. Then suddenly that just kind of really stokes the storytelling juices quite a lot. Again, incredibly difficult. Agatha Christie did this incredibly, incredibly well. But I mean, if you look at any movie, and you'll notice that there isn't one ending to it. There are many, many endings as you head towards the big ending.